All right. Hey ho, let's go. This is Resistance Radio, where natural selection selects resistance, and occasionally your lunch selects you. Today's episode is all about a parasite with a name that sounds like a minor character in a sci-fi film, but behaves more like an uninvited house guest who refuses to leave, and that's Cyclospora. Right now, the U.S. is in the middle of a sizable cyclosporiasis outbreak. Michigan alone has reported over 1,200 cases in just a few weeks. To put that in perspective, Michigan typically sees about 50 cases in an entire year. This is not a small bump, it's a 20-fold surge. Think of it as like expecting a quiet dinner party and suddenly hosting a wedding reception. Cases are showing up across at least 18 states, and here's the tricky part: we still don't know the exact source. That uncertainty isn't reassuring, it's epidemiology in real time. Okay, so what do we have going on here? Um, What is Cyclospora? It is a microscopic parasite that infects the small intestine. You get it the old-fashioned way, eating or drinking something contaminated with fecal matter. Most often, that is something like a fresh produce, leafy greens, herbs like basil and cilantro and raspberries. The usual suspects in what we like to call the healthy choices aisle. But unlike norovirus, which spreads efficiently from person to person, Cyclospora does not. This is not about your coworker coming in sick. It's about what got into your food before it even reached your kitchen. Let's talk about the symptoms. This is not your typical 24-hour inconvenience. What we're talking about is prolonged watery diarrhea, often relapsing, fatigue, weight loss, bloating, just enough misery to disrupt your life for weeks, sometimes longer. Patients often start to feel better, then it comes back like a sequel that no one asked for. If untreated, illness can last a month or more, and because routine stool tests do not detect cyclospora, diagnosis is unfortunately often delayed. Clinicians have to specifically ask for it, otherwise, patients risk being labeled something like irritable bowel syndrome, and when what they really have, though, is a treatable parasitic infection. But there is good news. This is typically not life-threatening in healthy adults. But for older patients or for those that are immunocompromised, transplant recipients, for example, patients on chemotherapy, this can become severe, prolonged, and even dangerous. Dehydration alone can spiral into hospital-level illness. And in Michigan, dozens of patients have already been hospitalized. Okay, so what can you do? Here's where things get mildly frustrating. Washing produce helps, but not reliably. Cyclospora oocysts are sticky. They are resistant to standard sanitizing methods, including chlorine. So that quick rinse under the tap, better than nothing, but not a guarantee. Cooking, however, works. Heat kills the parasite. So while this outbreak is under investigation, cooked vegetables are the safer bet. If you are at higher risk or just simply cautious, you might consider avoiding the usual outbreak associated foods now. That's, for example, that would be bag salads, fresh herbs, delicate produce like raspberries. Not forever, just until we know more. And if you do develop watery diarrhea, especially with fatigue and weight loss, this is your cue. Get evaluated and ask specifically that they test for cyclospora. Because if you do not ask for the test may not happen. Okay, there's one more layer to the story because there's always a systems story. National surveillance for cyclospora has become less consistent over the past year. Shocker. That means that we are likely undercounting cases. So when you hear 1,200 cases, understand that this is probably the visible portion of a much larger problem. The epidemiological equivalent of seeing the tip of an iceberg and hoping it's just a small ice cube. And then there's the global food system, complex supply chains, imported produce, irrigation practices, all converging into a single salad bowl. When contamination happens upstream, it disperses widely and quietly downstream. This is what makes outbreaks so difficult to track and so easy to underestimate. So here we are, a parasite that thrives in warm seasons, travels through our healthiest foods, avoids and evades routine testing, and reminds us that food safety is not just about kitchens, it's about systems. Because in public health, the lesson is rarely just wash your lettuce. It's usually understand the system that brought the lettuce to you. And right now, the system is telling us something. So stay curious, stay cautious, and maybe for the moment, consider sauteing your spinach. This is Resistance Radio, where natural selection selects resistance, and we try to stay one step ahead of what's on our plate. Thank you for tuning in.